Welcome everybody to Scale Up Mastermind. Today we have an amazing guest with Coach DMac. He's going to be talking about strategies for coping with business uncertainty. That's a hot topic right now with everything that's happening in the world. Who knows where we may end up in a few months, but you could if you develop some good strategies. And also it's important to keep level-headed. So that is something that Daryl's going to be touching on today. A quick note to the sponsor of our organization here, Thurston EDC-Center for Business and Innovation, where we run an ecosystem for entrepreneurs, different resources for different businesses. We offer different coaching opportunities. We connect people with resources that are free and stay in this state. A couple of those include the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which helps with government contracting. Impact Washington, for anybody who's a manufacturer. We stay connected with a number of different associations in the state. So if there is a problem that you're having with a specific trade or association, contact us and we can help you get connected with the right person who can advocate for you. As well as programs like this, where we're directly trying to connect you with relevant material to help you with your business. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Coach DMac. He is our master trainer for Scale Up with the Thurston EDC-Center for Business and Innovation. He comes from decades of experience. Many of you already know him. And he has some words to say about business uncertainty and coping and planning. So Coach DMac, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, James. I am honored to be here. Whenever I'm with a group of business owners, I am absolutely thrilled because I say this all the time, but anyone who has the courage to go into business and stay in business automatically has my respect. I don't care what industry you're in, what kind of business you have. That's just a common bond that we have as business owners. And strategies for coping with business uncertainty. This came out of a presentation I was asked to do a few months ago. And it's one I've been delivering. I've delivered several times now. And it's so important because in our business, there's always going to be uncertainty. And if we have a way to internalize it and to be able to, meet these uncertainties and keep ourselves in emotional balance, what I call it, then life becomes a lot easier. And a lot of what I'm going to share with you today, you may have heard of a lot of these, you may have seen them, but you may not have seen them the way I illustrate them because this is how my brain works. And these are some tools that I have developed that I have used for myself. So everything that I'm sharing with you, I have tested it, and I'll share what the results have been once we keep going further through this program. So the pandemic came and went, still around, and it left us with a lot of uncertainty, fear. It kind of turned everything upside down, and now there's political upheaval, there's inflation, there's war going on in Ukraine, there's all kinds of things going on. And really, the world just keeps on turning, right? We have all these things, but we're impacted with our business, and especially with COVID, when it shut a lot of businesses down. And really at the basic core, what this did was it interrupted our routine. We're all used to doing things. We have routines. And nobody had an answer. People plan for worst case scenarios all the time. They do contingency planning, but nobody had a plan for, COVID. And people had to completely recast their cash flow, set new goals and objectives. And it created, I'll use the word upheaval a lot, but it created a lot of fear and a lot of trepidation, which leads me to a very important point that I want to share with you. I call this the illusion of control. because all of us want to be in control. We want these routines. We want these systems. We want to be in control, but are we really in control? We try to control our environment. We try to control what happens to us. And when we're not in control, then it's very easy for us to go into reaction mode. And reaction mode can open up a whole can of worms, a whole bunch of problems on itself. And so as the business owner, everything we do in our personal life is reflected in our business. We are always the bottleneck. And if the way we show up in our life and in our personal life, it's always reflected in the business. Your good habits and your bad habits, your good skills and maybe your not so good skills reflect in your business. And we're always attempting to look for things outside of us when in most cases, the answers are all within us. We just have to know how to control that and how to look for it. So this illusion of control, there's really only one thing that's guaranteed in life, one thing: that change is going to happen at some place, some time in the future. Change is going to happen. And we do not like change. We stress over change as human beings. We freak out. We don't like it. But isn't it ironic that change is the only thing that is guaranteed to happen? And so when you think of that, we can't control what changes, but it's always guaranteed to happen at some point. And we want to control our environment and everything that's around us. But really, there is only one thing we can change. Anyone want to type into the chat? I'd like to make this interactive. What's the one thing that we do have control over? It's really only one thing. Anyone care to guess? Our attitude, ourselves. That's right, how we react. It's our thoughts, right? It's our thoughts. And our thoughts lead to how we feel, the action we take, and it creates our attitude. And so that's the only thing that we can control, but it's so easy to get distracted, and it's so easy to not become aware of our thoughts. So I want to share a concept with you. I've never heard anyone call it this way. It's just a name that I chose for this. Actually, I had read it years ago, but nobody seems to know what it is. And I call it emotional balance. Emotional balance. So what is emotional balance? Emotional balance is living with a positive state of mind. It means we focus in the positive, and when we maintain a positive state of mind, it allows us to respond instead of react, that I saw somebody had shared there. It allows us to remain happier and healthier, and fewer things bother us when we are in a positive state of mind. But that's not all. If you think about it, when our mind is at ease, positive state of mind, it is not going into dis-ease. So many diseases and things that happen to us are when we're in the lower part of the mind, what I call the negative part of the mind, then all kinds of things can happen. And when we're in a positive state, that's where we see opportunities. It's where we see opportunities. So if something's happening to your business and you need to make a change, if you're in a negative mindset and you're just in reaction mode and you're upset and you're blaming and all these things that we're going to talk about, you miss the opportunities, and many of them might be right under your nose and you miss them. And for business owners, maintaining emotional balance, we have to, our livelihood's at stake. We have to be able to handle situations and circumstances and respond accordingly. So how do we go about maintaining emotional balance? Well, first, I want to show you what it is. And again, this is one of my graphs that I made. I hope you can see that. I make things very simple. What you're looking at here is if we were able to take your mind, the space in your mind, and I was able to break it into two halves. The top half is positive and the bottom is negative. Now, I call this section down here the basement. I call it the basement of my mind. And if any of you have ever spent time in the basement, it's not a very pleasant place to be. And what's interesting is frustrations and anger. That's a negative. It can, the more you hold on to those thoughts, guess what happens? You cycle down until you eventually hit depression. And when you're in a depressive state, I can't imagine anyone running a business while they're being depressed. And the reason I can't imagine anyone doing it is because I did it before. And it's not fun and it sucks. And the alternative is so much better, which is up here in the positive space. So sometimes I call these the quadrants of our mind. And what's really interesting, maintaining emotional balance means we actually live with our with our thoughts and our emotions up here in the positive spectrum, the positive quadrant. Now, I used to hear people talk about that, but I didn't really believe it was possible because for the majority of my life, and I'm talking not the too distant past, like a few years ago, this used to be my experience. Now, notice this time frame is over a couple of weeks, but I would be in kind of a so-so mood, who cares? And then something would trigger me. I would get in reaction mode, and then I would spiral down. And then eventually I'd make myself up, and I was all giddy and happy and positive, but it was really short-lived. And then I would be back down here again, and I could stay for like a week or two in a funk. I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but it's the truth. And I would run a business that way. How do you think I showed up to my employees when I was acting that way? I mean, I'm sure I don't want to know, but I'm hoping I had plenty of time to redeem myself later. But I tried. I was always struggling and I was always beating my head up against the wall, and I never learned any of these things that I'm showing you here. So when you come back here, I have to tell you that practicing these techniques that I'm talking to you about, this is where I live now. Very rarely does something trigger me. And if it does, if I start to dip my toe down in here, I have techniques that pop me back up. And I don't have to live down here in this negative space. And to me, that is the greatest joy I have ever experienced, because I actually went through COVID without letting my mind take a verbal beating. And that is tough. Okay. It's one of the greatest gifts that I have ever received. And I want everyone to have that same gift because it's available to all of us. Now, how do we start to maintain emotional balance? We first have to take care of ourselves. If you won't be any good to anyone else if you don't take care of yourself. So you have to take care of yourself first. And taking care of yourself means understanding your needs and making sure those needs are met, because again, you're not going to be any good for anyone else. And a lot of us tend to put other people's needs first. And that's why you see the airline stewardess here. They say that on the airplane, put on your oxygen mask before putting on your children. Now, how do we start achieving emotional balance? Number one is taking total responsibility. For those of you in the scale-up class, you'll have heard this before. I inserted it into the scale-up curriculum because it's so fundamentally important. We are the creators of our own experience. If we do not accept being the creator of our own experience, then we become a victim of circumstance. We could become the victim of everything that's going around us. So this may be a review for you, but take total responsibility for your life and business without blame. Okay. It means there may be things that have happened, but you know what? You're the owner. It's your life. You take responsibility. And when you do, my goodness, life becomes so much easier. So much easier. So acknowledge yourself as the creator of your experience and not the effect. So when we look at ourselves, when we take control and say everything I'm doing is I'm responsible for my business, and I acknowledge and I'm moving forward, and the only thing that's guaranteed in life is things are going to change. But when things change, the only thing we have control over is our thoughts. And so when we know that and we're clear about that and we're aware of what's happening inside our head, then we can respond and make choices and keep ourselves in emotional balance. So let's look at the opposite. When we're not the creator of our experience, when we act as if we're a victim of our experience, what are some telltale signs? I just want you to be aware of these in case any of these are happening to you. Typically, if you had something taken away from you, if you had something that you lost, it's easy to feel as if we've been victimized, no matter how small or how big it is. Now, I'm not saying this can be easy to accept when something happens, but if we want to maintain emotional balance, we cannot allow us to go into victimhood, because that spirals us down into that bottom quadrant of our mind. Also, if you feel you lack something, those people have it made and I don't, or they're lucky. If you ever catch yourself saying, this isn't fair, that is a sign of victimhood, being a victim of the experience. Does that make sense? So when COVID hit and mask mandates and all these things happened, and I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, I don't care what side of, the debate you're on. To me, I just don't care, because it's us and it's our business that matters. So, people start blaming the governor, the president, whatever it is. They just start going, and then they get online and spew all kinds of toxic stuff out there, and they gossip and they put all this blame. If that's you and that's what you want to do, I'm not going to stop you. But if that is you, and that has been, my question is, how are things working for you? Are you happy? I haven't met somebody who whines and complains and blames everybody that is truly happy. I just haven't seen it. And maybe some of you have, you can prove me wrong, but it's a choice we have to make. And when I understood this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a victim of this. I don't want to act this way. I want to take control of my life. I want to be happy. I want to experience the joy of life out there and live my business, run my business accordingly. How many of you heard of attracting abundance into your life, having an abundant life? Put a show of hands or something. Yeah, I know you've heard that. Yes. Can you imagine do you think abundance comes from the negative bottom basement quadrant of your mind? No, it doesn't. And I love Bob Marley, and there's a quote from Songs of Freedom. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Bob had it right. He knew what was going on there, that you can't sit there and allow our mind to go in these spots. And what's worse is if you've ever been in that negative space and something's going on and your head's spinning, oh, I have not experienced that in a very long time, but I can remember that. You can't sleep. You lay awake at night, almost terrified. And where are our thoughts at when that's happening? Are they in the positive? No. And what about if you have people that come around you and they like to gossip and they like to talk to you and they're full of toxic energy? You may have friends that are that way. You may be married to somebody that's the way. You may have parents that are that way. And if that's the case, we have to learn how to defend ourselves from allowing those in, because toxic thoughts can really, they're really harmful. They're far more harmful than you can even imagine. So to overcome a sense of loss or lack, focus on finding the opportunity instead of dwelling on what you are missing. So finding the opportunity. Well, how can we find opportunities if things are not going our way, if there's uncertainty and we're not sure what to do? How can we focus on opportunities then? Well, if we're in the negative quadrant, we will never even see opportunities. We never have a chance to focus on them. So a couple ways is, again, to avoid toxic chatter. Our phones are one of the greatest devices ever made. We have a computer in our pocket. I can click any button and play music, any song I want to. Now people used to come in and buy music from me. Now you just click on this thing and it's here. But it also has a news feed. And there's a lot of people that like to sit around and do some doom scrolling. That's what I call that. When we're going through and looking, it's doom scrolling. And look at that. And I've done it. And I still, from time to time, feed through things. But guess what? I don't let it get into my mind. I don't let it get down into my negative space. And I make sure that I keep it under control. Let's see. There's a comment that came in. Oh, talking about a win. Excellent. So that's another reason why I ask every class what you're grateful for. I ask what your wins are, because when you're focusing on something positive, you can't focus on something negative. You can't have two simultaneous thoughts, one in the upper quadrant and one in the bottom. It's one or the other. Now you can go back and forth, ping pong back and forth, but we do not want that to happen. So we protect ourselves from negative people. So be aware. Strategy is be aware if you're around any buckets of negativity. What are they and where do they come from? What's the source? Because you want to protect yourself. You want to protect yourself at all costs. And negativity is a way that can it erodes us and it takes us away from our vision. So if you remember, in the scale-up training, we talked about vision, and knowing your vision is in the positive quadrant. Now I'm going to show you something. Let's see. I want to show you this because this I just made recently, and I think it will bring everything home. Let's see. All right. Any questions so far on this or comments as I'm looking for my next slide to put in? So just to recap, uncertainty happens all the time. And we think we can develop the best plans, which planning is very useful. We can develop plans, but the only thing that's guaranteed are things can change, and that can throw our plans out the window. And if that happens, we only have one thing we could control. It's our thoughts. And if we if we're not careful, if we don't protect ourselves, then we can go down and sink into a negative spot, a space, and then we're not useful to anybody. Okay, let me pull this up right here.
Yeah, Patty was saying that you can curate your social media feeds, unfollow or hide people and pages that include toxic chatter. I think it's really important these days, especially since there's so many times that the whole point of a post is to evoke emotion and throw you off kilter so that you engage it, right? So I think keeping positive people, positive happenings in your life, that's one step to it.
Yeah, so I want to show you something here. Let's see if I can just put this right over my screen here. All right, you see this here. I just switched slides here because this is important. So just to recap, normal people, normal self, I guess, if you want to call your mind, we spend time up here in the positive quadrant. We have emotional swings, and this could be through a day. So I shared that with you. And then I also shared that this used to be my experience for a long time. And now this is my experience. And I call this emotional balance, but I also call it the abundant zone. But let me show you something here really quick. If someone attacks us or someone happens, and pardon me, this is just what I call this for someone who maintains emotional balance. I guess I didn't look at my slides here. When somebody attacks us or bad news happens, something unexpected, we can either stay intact and respond. Reaction is just a standard part of our process. It was for me. I was in reaction mode all the time. And the way we take our power back and become unstoppable, in our mind and in our business is by focusing in that positive quadrant and not letting these things get to us. Now, I want to show you one more diagram. I've never seen this diagram this way. So if you take that positive quadrant that I just showed you right here, that's the box I just showed you a minute ago. If we're scared about the future, this is it projected out in the future. That's where fear, anxiety, and worry about what's going to happen, what's going to go on, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make ends meet? Blah, blah, blah. We're playing all these tracks. And guess what? There was a study done, I think about 10 years ago. And did you know, I think they surveyed over 5,000 people or 10,000 people. It was a university that did this. And 80% of the people or of the people that were surveyed, their thoughts, 80% of them were negative. 80% of them were negative. And then what they found out was out of those negative thoughts, those fears and worries and insecurities, it was something like 95% or 97% never came to pass, which tells us we are energy in a negative space when in reality it's not going to even happen. But as humans, we do this. Why do we focus out there? Because our past, we don't have any memory of it. That's what stepping out of the comfort zone is. We're doing something new for the first time. We don't have a memory stored in our memory bank. And so when you're able to live in the positive quadrant, and if you start to get tripped up, this is what I do. I jump up here and I start focusing on my vision in my dreams, what I do want. And if something gets interrupted, then I get to work on recasting it. The only thing that's guaranteed to change in life is change. That's guaranteed. So why beat ourselves up? Why let other people's fear and anxiety enter our sacred space? This is where gratitude and joy and happiness live when we're in the present moment. That's why I call it a gift right here. And that's where our personal power lives. Can you think of how running a business requires all these things going on? And then there's all these outside things that happen, and we have no control over it. Hard to remember this, Lancer. It is. I used to remember this all the time. I mean, I used to understand the concept, but then I would get sucked back into my daily. Getting into this space and letting it so this does not bother you is the same thing as going to the gym and lifting weights. It's the same thing. We practice it. We have to be aware of our thoughts. We have to be aware of what we're focusing on. And it takes time. You start strengthening, and pretty soon nothing bothers you. And it's very rare that anything derails you. Sometimes we think of something from the past, right? Oh gosh, I did that, or I'm a terrible person, whatever it is. We all have these things from our memory, and every one of these prevents us from really pursuing what we really desire to do. Does it make sense? So it's important. Don't let anyone live in your upper quadrant, your penthouse, for free. If you have people that are invading your space, protect yourself. Develop a plan for what you might have to do. I've had to cut some people off, and it's not pleasant, but I told them I do not want to. I don't live in this world anymore. Recently, I had a buddy. We used to get together. We would drink beer and bitch. And that's all we did. We just complained about everything that was unfair and all this. I just did it week after week after week. And I think now, my gosh, how pathetic that I was in that space and doing it. But it's okay. I own it. Our brain does not come with an instruction manual. And we can't blame our parents or who raised us, because often they didn't know. So there's no reason pointing the finger at anything. But as a business owner, when we're not focused down here, when we're focused up here, this is where the opportunities come. This is where the opportunities are. We can see them. Can you imagine if you're so fearful down here, or you're getting on and you're part of the club that's writing all these nasty posts about the government or whatever? I mean, you're wasting a lot of time where you could be focusing on here and getting into action and making changes for your business. The cool thing about dishevel is it always creates new opportunities. Yeah, and you don't have that negative headspace. Any questions? I'm extremely passionate about this. I don't mean to laugh at it. I'm extremely passionate about these concepts because what it did for my life. And that's why I love sharing this and talking and helping people put together strategies if you're in one of these spaces. And a lot of times that's what I found I do when I'm coaching people. They'll come to me and they're drawing this. Matter of fact, that's how I developed this. I used to draw it for people so I could explain, well, you know what? You're stuck right here. That's all it is. You've never experienced it before, or you think that's going to happen. It's just our imagination running wild. And we have the most amazing mind in the world. So our minds can think of a lot of stuff. They can come up, they can manifest all kinds of stuff. Is it the abundance that we want, or is it the negativity and all the dysfunction and the fear for your business.
I just got that chat in the chat there with Lancer. Like, yeah, I can relate to that. There's so many things that people bring up these days, and they get these crazy tangents filled with so much anxiety. Man, it is good to, I mean, even if it feels bad initially, it's good to get that out of your life.
It really is. Life partners, the reason we don't do things anymore. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Lancer. You know, we all have those stories. We all have those people in our life, and that can make things challenging and add to the stress as well. But, you know, protect yourself first. You have every right and you have permission to not have to engage with people. And yes, it can be very difficult if they're toxic. If you have to be around them, limit the exposure. Limit the exposure. I love my mother, but I've had to limit the exposure. She'll come into a room and I'll hear for 45 minutes just everything that's wrong with. But I don't want to get consumed in that. Yeah. So I want to share a couple things with you really quick. If you don't have any other questions, I want to share a couple things. If you like these topics here and you want to go a little deeper in them, most of you know me as the person who is the scale-up trainer. I have a lot of multifacets to me. I'm Coach DMac now. And this is my new website, just so you're aware. I just launched it a week ago. And yeah, I use a little bit of language that some people do not like, but I'm okay with that. I had to be, you know what? We have to embrace who we are and truly embrace who we are and understand our gifts that we've been given at birth. And you all have gifts. You're all most likely using them in your business, but when you're not, there's trouble and things happen and we can get frustrated. And sometimes it feels like you're beating a horse against, pounding up against a dead wall. And so what I'm putting in here, I just want to show you, I have articles. I just put them in, but I'm going to start publishing, redoing, share Monday Motivation. And I share that in the alumni network, but I also have a badass community. It's called the Unstoppable Badass Community. And that is my term for people who want to live with abundance and not let anything get to them. You're literally can become unstoppable. And whatever life throws at you, you can handle it. And that's where that came from. So that is something that it's very similar to the alumni, but all my topics are on manifesting abundance and taking control of yourself and working on your plans. Yes, I have technical stuff. It's not scale up like what's in scale up. It's a different community. So if that interests you, you can go to the community there. And actually it looks like this. Well, Coach DMac community, that's CoachDMacCommunity.com is there. But I also want to show you something else. And I'm embarrassed that I haven't got my language updated on this. I've changed this. It's really about living the life of your dreams. This is a 4-day transformational event that I do. And it's in Olympia. And the next one is July 14th and 17th. And I just want you to be aware of this, because if this is something that maybe you're in a part of your life where you want something new or you need to break out of a cycle and you want to see what's possible, this is an immersive, high energy set of exercises. You do not bring your laptop to this kind of event because you will not use it. And you'll get to take a look at yourself, who you really are, what your purpose and passion is, to see if there's something you're not in alignment with. And then I help you unleash that inner badass that's inside of you so you can bring it into your life and into your business. And that's why it's so cool, because you are the bottleneck. How you show up in life is how you show up in your business. So it's absolutely beneficial to your business. This is the ultimatebreakthroughexperience.com. I charge $1,500 for this, but if you notice right now, there's a $300 thing until May 31st. So not here to promote. I just want you to be aware that this is something that I do, that a lot of people have no idea that that's part of my repertoire. I've been doing these events since 2019. I went to one of these events. It totally changed my life. It helped shift me into the abundance thinking that I'm talking about. And I just want to share it. So, yes, regret the things I have done instead of regretting the things I have not done. So say that again now. Regret the things I have done instead of regretting the things I have not done. I never want to have regret for the things I've done. Yeah, our biggest regret should be the things we haven't done and not taken the risk. That's the tragedy. Don't wait until the end of your life when it's almost over to meet the person you were supposed to become on this planet. Yesterday's gone. We don't know how much time we have left. So if there's something you've been putting off, if you've been afraid to go after your dream or do something, make a change with your business, you got resources all around you, but you're the only one that can make that commitment and go after it. So maybe this lights fire under one of you. I don't know. Awesome. So that's my presentation. I didn't plan a
awesome. No, I think that was great. You know, I know that I think we should open it up for conversation.
I would love it. I'd love it if anyone had any thoughts or feedback or.
You know, what are some of the ways that you guys have really brought out an abundance lifestyle in your business, in your life? And how has that helped you to navigate some of these shutdowns, some of the hurdles, the transitions, right? The pivots that we've all had to make. Just feel free to come off mute and tell us a little bit about your story, because people learn from that.
Oh, don't be shy.
I have something.
Yes.
I was very proud of my long-term client relationship pre-pandemic, and I was very resistant to opening my hair chair to new clients pre-pandemic. But then I realized that some of these people aren't going to come back. Some of them don't have to drive to Seattle anymore because they're all remote, and I have to be welcoming change. So I totally rebranded my website, and we did my business plan through the Scale Up program. By the way, when I was in lockdown for 3 months, I had nothing else to do but work on my business. And I was not allowed to work in my business because it's location people based. And it enabled me to stay in business as long as I have, by focusing on who might be trying to find me during the shutdown. And it absolutely worked out great. I was booked solid for weeks at a time until I decided to kind of limit that. Taking new clients when I'm getting ready to move to another country is not something it's kind of awkward, because then they like me and I like them. And I'm like, well, this is probably the last time I'm going to see you. So I quit accepting new client business because I'll be moving to another country in September. But yeah, it worked great. It helped me sustain my business.
That's awesome. And I'm excited for you, Lance. So you're going to, is it Ireland?
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, Patty.
Yeah, I can just add something that helps me stay motivated and focused and on point. I'm a very visual person, so I like mantra cards around my house and around my desk. And so I have a box that has about 50 of them. And maybe once a month I go through and pull out what calls me and speaks to me at this time. And so I'll just share a couple. I have 3 that are on my desk right now. This is one of my favorite ones. It's what shows up when you show up.
Yeah.
And this has been a reminder to me to get out to those networking events that always feel so awkward and uncomfortable, and to show up in places where I maybe don't want to be at that time. But I know that I've seen time and time again that once I get there, like it's good, and I meet somebody, or I just have a really positive experience. So just to keep in mind what shows up when I show up. And then this, through the pandemic, get fired up again, right? It's like sometimes there were weeks where we just had pandemic fatigue and just everything felt kind of overwhelming and just kind of over it. And I just was in a pause moment, and it's like, okay, shake that off and put that card up on my desk. And that was a daily reminder to, just like, refine the passion in what you're doing, and refocus on the purpose, and get fired up again, and look for the things every day that make me feel fired up. Like, and then this one was just to keep moving forward all the time, and forward may look different every day. But yeah, it's just a visual reminder for me to keep those things top of mind. So.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Chad, I saw your name. I'm like, why? I know that name. As soon as I saw your face, like, oh, so delighted that you're here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to join this. So I've got a question for you.
Yes.
When you were, falling into the basement on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah.
How did you start to recognize when you were headed in that direction so that you could turn your thoughts around and start to focus on your vision and get your imagination working for you instead of against you? What was the technique that you used to recognize that and turn it around?
Yeah. So what I do now, and how I shifted it originally through the process, I don't know what I did then, but I know what I do now to keep it out of it. So all of our thoughts, believe it or not, evoke emotion in us, right? And we can become so tuned to understanding what our emotions are. Most of us don't even know. We just feel an emotion and, oh, it's crying or it's happening. Our emotions are actually a guidance system for us. They tell us if we're going in a wrong direction or not. And so for me, it's like this feeling I have if I start to feel certain thoughts, and the technique is always to shift it back into vision. Okay. Now there's different ways we can stay in vision. Some people do mantras. You heard Patty has mantras. We can also write a letter from the future to us that we can read over and over. Some people create a vision board. I like creating a vision movie, which is a movie I like to make, seeing my life playing out. And we have to have something that excites us and motivates us. So that way we have something that we are moving towards. At least that's what it works for me. Now, sometimes I think it's very important that we have support people in our life, which could be your spouse, somebody else, that if you start to recognize that you can at least talk to them about it. And it's not that you're going around whining and being negative. It's different when you know you're in that space and it's like, I'm having troubles getting out of it. So I had to do that. It's probably it was before the pandemic, believe it or not. But I had clients that for whatever reason, my income disappeared, like it vanished. And all of a sudden I was pulling out of my 401 or my IRA. I was maxing out some credit cards. I mean, there was like a 4 or 5 month period where I was just in I felt like I was in this financial crisis, and I had to have someone that I could talk to. And believe it or not, when we can shift our mind out of there, when we can have the power to do that, things changed in the opposite direction really fast. And so it was like, oh my gosh. And sometimes in life, we experience a lot of upheaval when something major is going to change for us. Right. And we don't even recognize that. Like, we could always look back and go, oh, if that wouldn't have happened to me, if I wouldn't have got fired from that job, I would have never discovered this or whatever it is. And so sometimes those things, but having something that can inspire you with vision. So the first question, Chad, is we have to have something that we aspire to create. And oftentimes we're really good at creating a vision for our business, but not the rest of our life. I don't know if that answers your question or if that helps. But to me, it's a mental game. If something triggers me, or there's times I woke up out of bed and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what the heck's wrong with me? Why am I focusing on something that potentially could happen negative? And for me, I have some songs that I listen to, and then I focus. I have a ritual and a routine. If you saw me in the morning, I'm like walking around and doing all this stuff. It's my morning routine. I do gratitude every morning. I look at what I plan to accomplish that day, and I go into vision. And that's part of my daily routine. I usually do it about 5:30 in the morning. I like to get up early so I can do that when I'm the only one in the house. We all need a morning success routine. I believe that's extremely important because there's too much chaos and there's too many things going on that distract us. And so we need to have a way to get focused. And I like to do it on a daily basis.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think there used to be, what was it? There used to be that guy that did the TED, well, he's still there and he's still doing it, but the TED Talks for Magic Mornings, right? Getting set up in the morning, getting a ritual going that you set yourself in that mind space.
And that's what I do. And I have certain songs. I have a playlist, a Spotify playlist. I call it my dream achievement playlist. And when I get in the car, I play one of those songs. If I need extra motivation, I carry my, these are just my little techniques that I use. I carry my headphones with me that I can Bluetooth in. So if something happens and let's say I get some bad news or something triggers me, I'm like, okay, I don't want to stay in this funk. And I'll put these on and I'll blast something and I'll walk, or I journal, I'll write something out while listening to the music, and I can get my mood shifted back and reclaim my power before I go sinking into a type of abyss. That's my process, and it works very well. It's funny because I'm not used to really telling people my process like
well,
this.
It's a workout routine, right?
It is. It's a mental. Ooh, I'm going to write that. That's DMacular, mental workout routine. So I like to say I'm on a mission to rid the world of demacular degeneration. If you know what macular degeneration is, that's a medical condition when you lose sight of your vision. Demacular degeneration is when you lose sight of your dreams and you feel like you don't have anything to inspire you. And I want to get that back into people. I'm the match that lights that fire underneath. That's really what I do. I feel like the last few years, I feel like that is my purpose. I've always known I'm supposed to inspire, encourage, and educate. I've always lived in that circle because that's who I am. And I feel like I feel really connected that that's my purpose to do. And I just love it.
Well, I mean, to Daryl's credit, since I've started working with him, I have never seen angry Daryl.
No.
And that's several years now. So
angry Daryl has not emerged in a long time. Things aren't always.
He pretended to smash things at the office, but that wasn't Daryl's smash.
I haven't broken something or done anything in a very long time. I'm so grateful. That was my vice. I would get something would trigger me, and then I'd break something. I never hurt other people, nothing like that, but I could, it's just.
It's keeping that positive mindset, man. And I believe in that. I believe that you've got to work that muscle out. It's so easy because we're pretty much programmed by the media and everyone else to look and doom scroll and everything else like that. What's happening and why do we need it as our reality TV? But one of the things that isn't as so pushed out there, so intuitive necessarily, is to keep positive and keep abundant. And it changes your life.
Well, I want to say, I don't know, you can go ahead and close, James, but I want to say, everyone, thank you for those that you stuck around here and were part of this. I love this space that I'm talking about. Come join my community or message me on the Scale Up Alumni Network if you want to chat or have questions or anything. I am happy to do something like that. So looking for help. I have 20 retail employees, and I find so many of them very negative to work. They are part of my life on a daily basis. How can I bring into my business leadership to help them? So Colleen, we could always have a discussion later on that if you want, but it's about taking these principles and making it part of your culture. I've done some training for where people have brought me in to do this and train their employees. I did a 2-day version for a group of employees, and it dramatically changed what they're doing. So it's a matter of bringing that in and infusing it in, just telling them, is it going to do any good? It's ways to make sure they all understand these concepts, and then you practice them until it gets embedded in there. So not a quick fix, but there are things that you can do to do that.
And one thing, and Daryl is amazing. Like I would, there's no second guess of recommending him to come and speak. But maybe look into how you can shift a little bit of Kaizen, right? Empower your employees to own what they do, own their role, and improve it without your oversight. I think that really could be a good thing too. I've seen it help a lot of different businesses.
Yeah, and we have to lead by example as the business owner, right? So if we're negative, everyone else is going to be negative. If we don't practice integrity with certain things, nobody else will. So it starts at the top, and there's things that we can do. Yeah, I've seen companies that it's like filled with toxic slime in there because everybody's just so unhappy. And I hope that's extreme from what you're talking about, Colleen, but I get it. It's no fun to go around when that's what everybody's doing in there. Yes, Patty.
Just add one more thing. I know that when I'm around negative people, it drains my energy because I skew positive. And then I find that I'm working overtime trying to, create this negativity and trying to help them see something in a positive light. So it's just, I'm trying to counterbalance the negativity that they're bringing forward. So it's really draining. So I try and limit the time when I'm in those situations, or to gently get out of them quickly. So.
And don't be afraid to just cut off a conversation.
Yeah.
Like literally say, hey, I've got something else I have to do right now, and leave. Like, hey, I've got to get going. And I mean, because you can get my wife, she's in the other room, but she ends, people talk to her, and she's very empathic, right? And so when she listens to people, she listens intently and she takes it on, but is it not internal for her to cut that conversation? And so just knowing and training yourself mentally to know when to draw that boundary and then cut off that conversation and then break free of that, I think that'll do a lot of good as well.
Yeah, and recognizing, it's amazing how our emotions, they put off different sensations in our body. And until we become aware and tune in and can feel it, fear feels different than anger. And it's not just, the yelling type of thing, but it's really awesome. The human body is the most incredible machine ever created, or brain. It's like, we can literally create whatever we want. Really good to see you, Chad. Seriously, really good to see you. Really good to see all of you today. I appreciate you being here. And so thank you, James, for inviting me to come and speak about something that I'm extremely passionate about.
Absolutely. And we've got this recorded. It will be available if you want to watch it at 2 speed later. Since you've already seen it, right? It'll be available on the Thurston EDC YouTube channel, but also on the Alumni Network. So if you're not on the Alumni Network, make sure to get logged in there. If you don't know what the Alumni Network is, talk to me and we'll get you into the Scale Up program and get you in that program. So, all right. Well, let's call it a night. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Take care, everybody.